Hey, thanks for pressing play on Complexities.podcast. You're the bee's knees. This podcast is meant to be a catalyst for healing. We hope that our words will be thought-provoking, not ego-provoking. Although, I will poke fun at your ego. We'll also be discussing trauma and abuse of all kinds, neglect and mental health concerns and conditions, sex, drugs, rock and roll, alcohol, suicide, and probably religions and politics. It's likely that we'll cover most topics that have been labeled as triggering.
We are not doctors of anything. We can't treat or diagnose you, and we are definitely not a substitute for treatment of any kind.
Welcome to Complexities Podcast. I'm Miss Complexities, and this is Patty Face, my partner in all things.
Hello.
Hello.
You seem awake.
No, that's not really my thing.
Episode number 4.
We're continuing on our 4Fs endeavor.
4Fs.
I'm going to wrangle in the tangents this time, and hopefully we can get through more than one of them.
We're gonna do what? Flight?
Yes.
And possibly, what's the one after?
I think it's freeze.
Freeze?
Yeah. And in the last podcast, I definitely kept getting confused about which was which. So last episode was about fight.
Fight.
Exclusively about fight.
We thought we were going to get to more than one, but we only ended up doing just
Yeah, and
just
I think
fight.
I kept calling it flight. So this one's actually about flight.
Flight.
To really confuse you. So this one's going to be about flight, and maybe we'll get to freeze.
Maybe we'll get to freeze. We'll see. I don't want the episodes to be longer than like an hour.
I don't think anybody else wants them to be longer than an hour either.
I think we've hit our sweet spot. We're hovering around an hour and 10-ish minutes. So I think it's perfect.
Perfection is the thief of joy. Actually, we're going to read a lot about perfectionism.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, this one's like the most me. So you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's
You think so?
you.
Have you
to a
read
T.
all the others?
Yeah.
So you read them all and you think this one's the most you?
Yeah.
Even more so than Fight.
Fight wasn't really me very much at all. I mean, there was just that like controlling bitch aspect of myself.
Right, which makes you push everybody away, which makes you feel more alone, which
Right.
I learned from last episode.
Right.
That's just a small part of you. You think you're way more Flight than anything else?
I'm so complex. There's so many aspects of me.
You are. Everybody is.
Right, so this isn't just about me, but this is about finding which one resonates with you.
Me?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Right.
Listeners.
All people. We all have these aspects within ourselves that need to come into alignment.
Here we go.
Yeah, read on.
Read on.
So we're starting at page...
For those of you following along, it is page 112.
Open up your
hymnals.
Yeah, open up your CPTSD Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker to page number what?
112.
Yes. You may rise.
And also with you. Here we go.
We're horrible people.
We are horrible people. Recovering from a polarized fight response. You want me to start there?
No, where are you?
I don't know. This is the page you gave me.
Okay, right there. That's where you're starting. This is the beginning of flight.
No, it says fight. She lost it.
Yeah.
She handed me this book, didn't even look at it.
I did go through it. That's the issue.
Flight types.
There. The flight type and the obsessive compulsive defense. All right,
Oh.
This is page 114. Turn your hymnals to the next page. It's all
114. Good. Where the fuck? No, this is 146.
What?
You gave me page 146.
What did you do?
I don't know. You handed it to me. This is awesome.
I think you need to learn how to read a book.
I know how to read.
All right, don't lose the page.
I have the page.
You're sitting like 2 feet from me.
I know. How did that
you
happen? Sleight of hand.
Maybe that's the page we're supposed to be reading. I'm going to have to go back and look at it later.
146?
See what it says,
Oh,
yeah.
Have you gotten that far in this book?
No,
I mean, you've kind
I've
of
been skipping around.
It looks like you've been skipping around like you do. All right. Page 114. The flight type and the obsessive compulsive defense. Man, the letters are like really close together. The words are close together. There's no spaces almost between the... You see that?
Does that bother you?
Yeah, it weirds me out. For the title part. If you guys have this book, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. Extreme flight types are like machines with the switch stuck in the on position. They are obsessively and compulsively driven by the unconscious belief that perfection will make them safe and lovable. They rush to achieve. They rush as much in thought as they do in action. So thought being the obsession, action being the compulsion. As children, flight types variably respond to their family trauma on a hyperactive continuum. The flight defense continuum stretches between the extremes of the driven A student and the ADHD dropout running amok. Flight types relentlessly flee the inner pain of their abandonment with the symbolic flight of constant busyness.
Right. So people who are workaholics, people who, like for me, I've noticed that I have to always be doing something because I don't want to be alone with myself. So if my mind is doing things, if I'm constantly working, if I'm constantly achieving, bringing home money or making some kind of progress in something, then it's like this false sense of I'm doing really great and it motivates me. And when I'm not, I guess that's how I knew that it was really out of alignment for myself, was when I stopped working or I stopped achieving something and I was left with nothingness. That's when I was like, holy shit, like I'm nothingness, because all this time I've been chasing things to make me feel good outside of myself instead of achieving them within myself.
Huh.
So like constantly working, constantly getting things done, never sitting still.
So flights are the obsessive compulsive. I mean, they're unconscious belief that perfection will make them safe and lovable.
Right. I mean, it comes from being not feeling worthy and not feeling good enough, I guess. Although for me, I kind of got to a point where I was like, nothing's ever going to be good enough for Phil. So I just stopped trying.
Right.
And I gave up.
How does that happen? I mean, here's the first thing I thought of when you started talking, and I read this. How does that play against things like depression, where you don't want to do anything? Like, how can you be a flight if you're in a hole? You're not achieving. You're not doing shit, you know?
Well, I think for me,
because I think a lot of people, especially with somebody that was CPTSD, would go through that, right? If they were a flight person, but they had severe depression, how is that gonna?
I think, at least in my personal experience, there are people who have depression, anxiety, and then there are people who have PTSD and complex PTSD depression, which is slightly different.
Oh, it's like a different brand of depression.
I think if you just have depression or depression anxiety, then yeah, you have that full body, like I can't get anything done or I'm unmotivated. And I've been there, but also whenever you have complex PTSD, you're so good at disassociating from your feelings that if you're feeling depressed, you often don't know, or like I don't connect to how depressed I am. I don't really realize it until I stop doing, or, I'm in between jobs, or my job's not making enough money, or...
You mean like you just realize that you're depressed and you go, oh shit.
Yeah, like I often realize like, wow, for the past like month and a half or years of my life, like however long, I've been really fucking depressed.
I think that's the case with everybody though. I didn't know I was depressed.
I don't know. I think some people are more in tune with it than others. Some people can be like, I'm really depressed right now. And then some people are like, it's like an underlying symptom.
You got to look for the signs though. Aren't the signs all kind of the same for depression? Similar? I mean...
I don't know. I mean, everybody's experience is different. And I think for people, at least like me, who have like this really intense need to work all the time and find that ideal perfection safety of constantly doing. When I'm not doing, that's when I realize like how depressed I am, or how anxious I am, or how lonely I am, or how unhappy I am, or how stressed I am, or whatever.
So how does that play against the flight then? The depression?
I think that's what people are running from. Flight is like ultimately like you're running from things within yourself.
So you're running from the depression?
You're running from your feelings. Depression, at least in my experience and my opinion of depression and complex PTSD, it's stemmed from emptiness from childhood, abandonment, neglect.
Right.
You never made connections with yourself or with other people. So how could you feel connection? How could you feel happiness? How could you feel whole if you never made those connections? And you spend all this time running from your feelings and your emptiness and your unhappiness and filling it with jobs and money and achievements and pieces of paper that said you did a good job, or degrees, or whatever the fuck it is that you do.
Just constantly motivated to do something.
Right. You're always doing something because underneath it, you're empty. Like, not in an offensive way. I'm not telling you, like, you're fucking empty. There's nothing under your documents that say you're achieving everything. No. Like, I don't mean it like that. I
Congratulations.
Mean,
you've done everything.
Like, objectively, you have to see, like, objectively, you have to look at it and say, like, okay, I'm running all these businesses. I have all these degrees. I'm doing all this stuff. But
the heart of the matter, you're doing
when I'm sitting alone with myself at night, I'm still unhappy. Why? It's because I'm running. I'm running from the real issue.
Is it? Is it true that there are people out there who really are just that motivated and they're not running from anything?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. But then there's like a fine line, that genius and insanity. Like,
right.
Like, I find Nikola Tesla to be a very fascinating person because he slept for like 4 hours a day. Like, he had all of these signs of somebody who was fucking insane, yet he was just really smart. And I don't know much about his childhood or anything like that, like what kinds of trauma he endured, but there are people who, and it's something I can do sometimes, and people I know who can turn these flight tendencies into that genius thing. Like, they're really good at art, or they're really good at writing, whatever. Like, they can turn that trauma and channel that into something amazing, but yet they're still at times unhappy people.
Isn't Elon Musk kind of like that?
I don't know. I've never met Elon Musk.
Well, I read a really interesting article in Rolling Stone about him, and it kind of pointed to, I don't remember if they straight up said he was depressed and had anxiety, but it kind of leaned that way, it seemed. And I was like, well, that kind of makes sense.
I don't know. Like, you know how I look at things? I look at the big picture. I think everybody has depression. Everybody has anxiety.
Sure. Everybody has levels of it.
But those things are also just a stupid crutch.
Right.
Like, nobody is just depressed.
Right.
Nobody is just anxious. Like, if you have depression, you have anxiety, you have trauma or pain in your past that you haven't healed from. So, in my personal opinion, in my humble opinion,
IMHO.
Everything boils down to trauma and pain from your past suffering or needs that didn't get met at some point in your life.
Right.
So nobody just has depression or anxiety or complex PTSD or whatever the fuck issue you have. I mean, rarely are people born with mental illnesses. They're usually made.
Right.
So if you have depression and anxiety, there's a root cause that you have to find. And if you are constantly running and in flight mode, trying to get away from your depression, trying to hide from your depression, trying to fill your depression with achievements and money and goal setting and reaching the goals, then you're not ever going to heal what, it's all...
You're just avoiding.
It's a catalyst.
Like people who drink.
A moment of healing. Like, you're depressed about something and your mind is like, look, this is what you need to confront and deal with. And until you do that, you're going to continue feeling depressed.
So does he talk about how this gets made? This kind of person, like he did with the other one with Fight?
Why don't you find out?
Do I go to the next brackets thing?
I don't know.
There's no more brackets on this page. There are no more brackets on this. Here's a big bracket.
Yeah, read the big bracket. See what that says.
All right. I gently and repetitively focus on confronting their denial and minimization about the costs of perfectionism.
And Bob used
I
to
guess
do
he's
that to me
talking
all
about
the
somebody
time.
that he's working with. We skipped a whole chunk here. Recovering. Oh, no. Damn it. I missed the bracket. I started in the second paragraph. Here we go.
You failed this bracket.
We go straight from obsessive compulsive to recovering from a polarized flight response. Here we go. The flight types that I have worked with are so busy trying to stay one step ahead of their pain that introspecting out loud in therapy hour is the only time they find for self-examination. Learning about the 4F model often helps them to renounce the perfectionistic demands of their inner critic.
AKA your conditioned mind.
So he gets them to talk about it out loud, and learning about the model, the 4F model, helps them to renounce. So to say, maybe I shouldn't be such a perfectionist. Is what he's getting them to do?
I guess that's what it said.
That's what it sounds like. Renounce the perfectionistic demands of their inner critic.
Have you ever? You're not really a perfectionist. I mean, you are.
I am. I
You're
mean,
a perfectionist.
it doesn't like rule my life though.
Although it does take you forever to do shit. It drives me crazy about you.
Right. Because I mean, in that way, I am a perfectionist in that I want things to be
But I think
just right.
Yeah, but it's different because he's talking about like, I mean, I guess he's talking about that too, but I think it's deeper, more of like a mental perfection. Like, I have to be perfect. Other people's actions have to be perfect. We have to be perfect. All or none thinking, black and white living.
That's very obsessive compulsive.
Yeah, so it's not like this task that I'm doing has to be done perfect. It's more of like, I have to say the exact perfect thing at the exact perfect moment, or else it's all ruined.
That's pretty fucking high level.
Or like holding other people.
Do people
to
really
this.
do that?
I do that.
Every word you have to.
This is
the perfect word at the perfect time, said in the perfect way with this perfect pitch and the perfect, really? That's a lot of processing in your brain.
I have a big brain.
You do. I saw a picture of it.
Anyway, yes. So I think when he's talking about perfectionism, he's talking more about the mental
just
aspect
overall,
of perfection, like
everything.
holding everything to an unrealistic expectation of perfection
I
in
think
your
that
mind.
would be a good key right there, unrealistic. Because, I mean, a lot of the things that I try to perfect and obsess upon, they are realistic.
Yeah, you can eventually get whatever it is you're building or creating to look the way you want it to look.
Right.
But
I'm gonna hopefully have an extra piece of wood that I can cut if I've messed up the other one by a half an inch or an eighth of an inch.
right.
I'll recut another one to make it perfect.
Right. And when you're building something, if you want it to be sturdy or whatever, it has to be perfect.
Right.
So those seem like healthy. Those seem like healthy things to obsess about. When I was in therapy,
We call that attention to detail.
in
the military, that's what we
Navy
call it.
calls it. Bob would call that obsessive compulsive disorder.
Really? Come on, that's pretty tame, don't you think?
No, I think for me, they had to make me realize, like, hey, these expectations they're not only unrealistic, but they're unhealthy. Like, no human being can ever be that perfect. And then my rebuttal would be, well, I'm not human. So it is a conditioned way of thinking, like, you hold yourself and everyone around you to this perfected, it's a perspective, like a unrealistic perfection perspective.
And the ideas that you are holding in your head are your own.
And it's kind of like when you're a narcissist, you don't realize that you're being a narcissist. When you're a perfectionist, you don't realize that your perfect expectations of reality aren't attainable and are unhealthy until somebody is like, hey, I don't think that anyone can ever actually live up to your expectations. You probably won't ever live up to your expectations, and you're just making your life miserable.
Oh, so you're making yourself depressed because you're not living up to your own expectation?
Yeah, I used to do that all the time.
Fuck, that sucks.
Yeah. But it's unconscious until somebody
points it out.
He says,
Right.
like your therapist.
Well, you got to be conscious of it at some level, right? Like, I'm not achieving the thing that I set out to do.
I don't know, because I would just be really depressed all the time.
And not
Things
know why?
didn't go my way, or I wish it were this way, but it's not.
So you didn't see yourself as having the control? Like, I'm trying to do this one thing and the world's not giving me what I need. It's not my fault.
I don't know.
I'm trying to do it perfectly, but the world's not giving me what I need to get perfect.
I don't know. Keep reading. Let's see what happens.
It's confusing. I mean, it can get real confusing, the line between perfectionism and depression and being aware of being a perfectionist.
Yeah, I mean, these are really deep things that you have to sit. You have to stop running and doing and sit and think about with yourself, like introspection of, hey, how much of a perfectionist am I? And it also has to do with, like, I'm a Virgo, so perfection is part of being a Virgo. I'm an INFJ. That is a part of being an INFJ. So it's like there's all these things personality trait-wise that I probably would have been a perfectionist even if I had never endured any kind of trauma.
Yeah, but you'd be like a healthy perfectionist.
I don't know. Is there any form of perfectionism that is healthy? Like, it's all has to be in balance.
That's what I was going to say. Just balance.
All right, keep going.
I gently and repetitively focus on confronting their denial and minimization about the costs of perfectionism. Denial and minimization about the costs. So they're minimizing the costs. They're like, nah, it's not that bad. Come on. Right? That's what he's saying. This is especially important with workaholics who often admit their addiction but secretly hold on to it as a badge of pride and superiority. Yeah. Going for a job interview, what's
I think there's
what's one bad thing you can say about yourself? Oh, I'm a workaholic, I'm a perfectionist. Bro.
Yeah, it can be good or bad. It just depends on how far you take it. And if you're like a really mentally stable person and you're a workaholic and you're a perfectionist, then maybe it has that like Nikola Tesla end result where it's like really good.
That's pretty rare though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a pretty unhappy, lonely guy. Like,
sure.
So.
Okay, so flight types can get, quote, stuck in their head by being over-analytical. I don't see you as over-analytical.
It's because you don't live in my head.
True story. I don't live in your head. It doesn't seem to ever stop you though. Like, I can get frozen by overanalyzing something.
Because I can't stop. I have to constantly keep going. And I have the ability to overanalyze while doing things.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Once a critical mass of understanding CPTSD is achieved, it is crucial for them to start moving into their feelings. Sooner or later, they must deepen their work by grieving about their childhood losses. Again, the crying and the grieving. Didn't I say that once? I was like, it seems like you just need to fucking cry it out. Be sad about your childhood.
Probably.
I feel like that was said in therapy or something somewhere. It was just like, yeah, that's... You don't ever seem like you ever actually got a chance, losing somebody.
Well,
people need to cry about it.
The issue is that if I let that happen, if I feel those things, then I feel all of it. Like, I can't do what normal people do where they're like, oh yeah, this one incident happened
people
and
don't
it was
do
really
that.
sad.
No,
and,
I think you have an unrealistic expectation of what us normal people do. If the feelings come out, they come out. I feel them.
Right.
I'm not like compartmentalizing my feelings. Going, I'm going to let this one little feeling come out so I can get over this.
But you also don't have the fear of, if all of those feelings come out, you're not like thrust back into...
Right. That's true.
An emotional flashback where you're not sure you're going to make it out of.
Right.
So...
I could see why you would want to compartmentalize a feeling and say, okay, I'm going to let this one little thing out so I can get over this one thing. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
I could see why you're scared. Makes sense.
I don't have fear.
All right, I'm going to keep going. So, sooner or later, they must deepen their work by grieving about their childhood losses. Self-compassionate crying is an unparalleled tool for shrinking the obsessive perseverations?
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 I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever seen that word.
How's it spelled? Let's Google it.
It's like persevere with Asians on the end.
I don't know how to spell persevere.
The S, obsessive, that's probably what it is. Perseverations of the critic. Okay, shrinking.
Ooh, that's
I'm going to back up to the beginning of this thing because it's got me all fucked up.
all right.
Self-compassionate crying is an unparalleled tool for shrinking the obsessive perseverations. That's beating me up. Of the critic, and for ameliorating the habit of compulsive rushing. As her recovery progresses, the flight type can acquire a, quote, gearbox that allows her to engage life at a variety of speeds, including neutral. Neutral is especially important for flight types to cultivate. What does he mean? Like, is that what we were saying just a second ago about trying to regulate how much of the emotion you're going to feel? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, I think the idea is that you get to a point where you can look objectively at your past, but then also like for me, I can look objectively at anything and I'm pretty numb to it all because I'm looking at it from like, I guess like a scientific standpoint.
Well, you're really good at not feeling your emotions, so.
Right. So I think the ultimate goal would be to be objective, but also to be like emotionally engaged to a healthy extent. Like, so the objective mind and the emotional mind are both in alignment and balance, and you're feeling and understanding everything, and you're coping and healing.
Huh. Okay. If you are a flight type, there are a plethora of self-help books, CDs, and classes. CDs, compact discs. For those of you who don't know, it's the new thing. That can help you learn to relax and decrease the habit of habitual doing. This is so essential because you can get so lost in busyness that you have difficulty seeing the forest from the trees. This makes you prone to prioritizing the wrong tasks and getting lost in inessential activities. When I am triggered, I often feel pulled to busy myself with the simplest and easiest tasks, sometimes losing sight of my key responsibilities. I'm like that. I do that shit all the time, and you yell at me for it. In flashback, flight types can deteriorate into chicken with its head cut off mode as fear and anxiety propel them into scattered activity. Spinning their wheels, they can rush about aimlessly as if motion itself is the only thing important. At such times, the flight type can rescue himself from panicky flight by inverting an old cliche into don't just do something, stand there. Blah.
So what comes to mind for me is like whenever I get really triggered, or I'm realizing that different triggers for me elicit different responses. And there's one specific trigger that I don't really know what it is, but I know the response that it triggers, and I just like clean, like compulsively, like I have to fucking clean shit.
Yeah, you don't do it very often.
No.
And there's no schedule to it.
No, it's just like all of a sudden I have to clean.
I've noticed,
and
yeah.
I can't stop cleaning. And I'm not really sure what it's all about, but it's like I just have to keep doing it. I have to keep cleaning it, and like that instant gratification of seeing the bathroom clean like makes me feel better. And while I'm doing it, I'm like, I know I'm running from something, and I'm trying to like run through my mind of like, what could it be?
Yeah.
What is it that I'm trying to avoid?
Yeah. Over the years, I've noticed that for sure. Well, more recently, I've noticed that. I'd say over the past year and a half, I've noticed. Because there's no scheduled time that you clean. It's not like I do dishes every single night because they have, we got to do dishes. It just has to get done. I'm not going to lie. There are times where I do dishes because I'm fucking frustrated and I just want to bury myself in a task. But yeah, when you clean and I've seen it, you get into that kind of cleaning mode, there's nothing stopping
you.
you.
There's like a glaze over my eyes.
It just happens. I'm like, what the she's randomly clean. We got shit to do and she's cleaning.
Yeah.
Kids got to go do something like, and I'm like, and then you almost try to make everybody else feel bad because we're not cleaning.
Really? I thought I just kind of like stuck to myself.
No.
Really?
It gets, there are times where it's just like, it's almost like you're angry because we don't clean. You're like, I'm the only one that ever cleans. And I'm like, oh.
Well, you know,
and I know,
you guys are messy.
Oh, well,
so.
no, we're not that bad, really. And what I end up doing, I learned.
When was the last time that you vacuumed something or mopped?
A couple days. Actually, I mopped this morning.
I mean, recently it's gotten better, but before, I think my anger was valid. Like, you just didn't do those things.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, we have tasks. Like, you do certain things and I do certain things.
Right.
And cleaning was just always my task. But this is different. This is like, I'm in that chicken with a head cut off thing that he's talking about.
Right, and I could tell, and that's why I don't fuck with you when you're in that mode.
Yeah, it's probably
I just stay
good.
away. I let you do what you're doing.
It's probably safer
Try not
for
to
you.
take it personally. It's another thing we should add to that Instagram post you just did. Advice for significant others.
Don't fucking take anything they say personal.
Wow. Don't
I
take
think
anything
that's a really
personally.
great advice for anything. Like,
Well,
don't
yeah.
take it personal. But it's harder when it's your partner, I guess.
It's harder when it's your partner and your partner has CPTSD.
And they can be really mean.
They can be really fucking mean.
Yeah.
Break your soul mean. There's a little
go
chunk
on.
left. Where was I? So at such times, the flight type can rescue himself from panicky flight by inverting the old cliche into "don't just do something, stand there." And by stand there, I mean stop and take some time to become centered and to reprioritize. So maybe that's something you can think of next time you decide you want to clean the house and sterilize every corner of every room. Don't just do something, stand there. And by stand there, I mean stop. Take some time to become centered.
I think that's...
And to reprioritize. To accomplish this, I recommend 3-minute mini chair meditations. If you are a flight type, you can enhance your recovery greatly by giving yourself a few of these each day. You can start a chair meditation by closing your eyes, gently ask your body to relax, feel each of your major muscle groups and softly encourage them to relax. Breathe deeply and slowly. When you have relaxed your muscles and deepened and slowed your breathing, ask yourself, what is my most important priority right now? What is the most beneficial thing I can do next? As you get more proficient at this and can manage sitting for a longer time, try the question, what hurt am I running from right now? Can I open my heart to the idea and image of soothing myself in my pain? So maybe that's what you should do. Next time you decide you're going to fucking go on a cleaning tirade, sit down. Ask yourselves these questions.
Yeah, let me just do the opposite of what my brain is conditioned to do. It'll be super fun.
Easy.
So easy. I was talking to someone about this yesterday, actually, and she was saying that she genuinely is afraid that if she stops doing, she won't get back up and continue doing because she has
Depression? Is that what it is?
and chronic pain and all kinds of things. So, I mean, it's completely legitimate fear.
Sure, it is.
Especially for people who've been in that depression where they just can't get out of bed for days and days and days.
And they found a way out of it.
Yeah, and the way out of it is to continue doing constantly.
So of course you're going to be scared to stop doing.
And
you're gonna
also
fall right back into that shitty place.
It's not just like what he's saying where you just sit down for a couple of minutes. Like, that sounds like a great plan, but the reason that I'm habitually cleaning compulsively is because there's some kind of emotion or thought or feeling that I don't want to think about or feel. So if I sit down, then I'm going to, on some level, feel it. It sucks because I'm at a point where I've connected with all of the ones that I can connect with, and everything else is really subconscious and buried. So, like, I know that there's some kind of unhappiness there that I need to touch on.
Right.
But
it's
I can't.
Just getting there is the hard part.
Yeah, I have trouble connecting with it. So.
That sounds like a different book.
Yeah.
Right?
Sounds like something.
Need to find. Never mind. Not going to go there. So finally, there are numerous flight types who exhibit symptoms that may be misdiagnosed as cyclothymia.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
A minor bipolar disorder. That's what it is.
Oh.
You even have it underlined.
Oh. Well, I mean, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
You were early on,
so
yeah.
That was my first diagnosis.
I think that's an easy misdiagnosis, right?
Yeah.
You're
I meet a
feeling
lot
this-
of people.
I mean, you were
Well, not a lot
sorry.
of people. I don't mean a lot of people.
You were
but-
in your adolescence. You were in your teenage years. So of course your emotions are fucking going nuts because your hormones are going nuts. So of course you're going to be 1 minute you're going to be really happy, the next minute you're going to be really sad.
What I
you're
love about
depressed
that
and
is
your
that
anxiety
nobody was
and your-
ever like, oh, maybe you're just being abused.
Yeah.
Like there were so many people in my life that could have like stood up and said, oh, like you're in a really abusive situation.
Mm-hmm.
We should get you some help. And they just never fucking did. Anyway.
Wow, who would it have been?
It could have been anybody. Anybody who actually gave a fuck.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In your life at that time.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I've met a lot of people, not a lot, but I've met people who tell me like, oh yeah, I have bipolar disorder. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't really think that's true because
That's what you told me when we met.
everybody that I've met who has bipolar disorder, they have like all of this trauma in their past. And I mean, this is just the people that I've met, you know, it's not
Sure.
everyone.
Well, pause the story real quick. Is bipolar supposed to be something that you get over time,
No,
or is it something
bipolar
you're
disorder-
born with? It's a chemical thing,
It's a
right?
chemical problem in your brain. It doesn't function right. Like,
Okay.
at
So-
least it's been a long time since I've researched bipolar disorder, so I'm sorry if I'm not doing this right. But it's something that like the things in your brain aren't working right, and you have mood changes.
Right.
So like it's literally out of your hands, and
It's
it's
nothing. Yeah.
And I don't think that there's anything that's literally out of your hands. I have trouble believing that bipolar. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying that the brain is a powerful thing. And
It
if
is
you
yeah.
really focused your energy on controlling it, then maybe you could. Personal opinion.
Not
Just
saying it would
saying.
be easy at all.
Yeah, I'm not saying it
'cause
would be easy, but
You can-
theoretically anything is possible.
Yeah, I
and
mean-
I found a lot of people who are just like, oh, I'm bipolar. I can't do anything about it. I'm a moody bitch. And that's just who I am. No, that's not who you are. You can change. You can heal. You can recondition anything because your mind is a machine.
Yep.
And you are in control of the machine. And
Right.
the
Well, and
machine-
think about it this
but
way.
If you just lie down and let it fuck you, then the machine is in control. And we do that with every mental illness or physical illness, or, you know, it's so much easier just to say, it's just happening to me.
Give me the drugs.
Yeah,
To fix
whatever.
it.
But so
It's proven that you can manipulate the chemistry in your own brain.
right,
You did it to survive.
right.
You are constantly your levels of chemicals in your brain are higher than normal because you're constantly in go mode,
Hypervigilance.
hypervigilance,
Right.
right?
But anyway,
So it's proven
I've
that you
met
can
people
manipulate
who
your
I'm
own
like,
chemistry inside
I don't
your
think
brain.
that you have bipolar. I think you have complex PTSD, and I'm willing to bet so many more people have complex PTSD than even realize, because everybody has trauma and everybody has these issues, and they're diagnosed with things like depression or social anxiety or bipolar or whatever.
Right.
Whatever the fuck you're I know somebody who was convinced she had borderline personality disorder.
Didn't they try to pin that on you too?
I probably have borderline personality disorder, but no, it all boils down to the deeper root of childhood trauma or trauma that's separated you from yourself. And when you think about like, oh, borderline personality disorder, like red flag, hello, you disassociated from yourself because of trauma. Like that's complex PTSD. All of these things, I like to trail things back to the root, because if you're just like fixing the symptoms, you're never fixing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And by problem, I mean the root cause of your unhappiness is so often trauma that that affected your mind in some way. And getting all the way back to that is realizing that you have some kind of complex PTSD and figuring out how to heal it. So how many things like borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, depression, how many of these things are deeper than just that thing? You know, if you have 10 different diagnoses, well, maybe it's just the one.
Right.
But that's just my humble opinion. I'm not a fucking doctor.
Neither am I.
So, you know.
But I mean, there's going to be a
But I've met a lot of people who are like, oh no, I don't want to admit the fact that I was abused or that traumatic things happened to me.
Who would want to? It's a hard thing to do, right?
Yeah. So we've
It's
talked
easier
about
just
this,
to take
but-
a bipolar disorder diagnosis than to admit that you had some fucked up shit happen to you. Right?
I guess.
There's going to be varying degrees of everything though, right? So where's the line, right? That's, I guess, for the doctors to figure out. Where's the line between this guy's got a little bit of depression and anxiety versus, yeah, we think now he's got
What I
CPTSD.
find
You know,
so
like
interesting is like whenever you go
you
to
have
a
to
doctor
know the parent
and
situation.
you're like, oh, I'm depressed or I'm anxious or this, that, or the other. They don't ever ask you like, oh, did you endure some really fucked up shit as a kid or, you know, recently? Like, no, they're just like, do you feel safe at home? Do you feel homicidal? Like, we're not asking the right questions of people. We're not even putting our patients onto the right track of self-discovery and healing. We're just asking the stupid surface questions to check off the right boxes so that we can prescribe the right medications and get paid.
Right. Well, it's like when I was diagnosed with my little depression thing, the first thing they did on day one was I went in and I sat at a computer and answered like 50 questions, multiple choice questions, varying degrees, strongly agree, strongly disagree, that kind of thing. And
But how
I
much
always
of
hate
that
those
ever
because
really like promoted any kind of self-reflection?
I mean, a good bit of it, made me really. I tried to answer those questions as honestly as I could, but the hard part about those questions is that I never feel like I can get the exact, and maybe this is my perfectionism coming out. I can never get the exact answer because sometimes it's like, well, yeah, sometimes I am really fucking depressed. Sometimes it does get in the way of work. Well, other times it doesn't. You know, like I can never find that perfect balance. Sometimes the question is just, it's not black and white, and there is no yes or no answer to this. You're seeing it.
I'm holding back a tangent. Why don't you go on to freeze?
So, anyway, we're gonna continue on. We did a lot of tangenting there.
Did we do flight? We finished flight, right?
We did.
So, in summary of flight.
That was quick.
Yeah. So, in summary of flight, if you're constantly running and doing, I urge you to think about what it is that you're running from, what your real fear of stopping is. And for me, sitting down and doing meditations and being with myself and being introspective and journaling or just being in the present moment has made so many breakthroughs possible. So I agree with what he's saying, sit down. Like, I'm not a good enough person to sit down 2 or 3 or 4 times a day and do 3-minute-a-day chair meditations. Like,
I think you're a great person.
But that's not it. I usually lay in bed at night and just go through everything in my head. But either way, you're still, any time that you're stopping what you're doing to confront the reason you're doing it is going to lead to healing, I think.
Sure. I would get on board with that.
All right, let's move on to freeze.
You want to do freeze?
Yeah.
42? Pretty good on time.
Do go on.
Do go on. The freeze type and the dissociative defense. Oh, this could be...
You're so disassociated, Miss Complexities.
The freeze response, also known as the camouflage response, often triggers a survivor into hiding, isolating, and avoiding human contact.
Hashtag those 3 years where I never left my house.
The freeze type can be so frozen in the retreat mode that it seems as if their starter button is stuck in the off position. Of all the 4 Fs, freeze types seem to have the deepest unconscious belief that people and danger are synonymous. While all 4 F types commonly suffer from social anxiety as well, freeze types typically take a great deal more refuge in solitude. Some freeze types completely give up on relating to others and become extremely isolated. Outside of fantasy, many also give up entirely on the possibility of love. That's not you. You're not that far in the freeze. Not right now. Not since I've known you.
So I think
there's bits of that of you, but it's not like...
This reads like a
You wouldn't
timeline of my life. Like, I was very flighty, in the beginning, like right when I was living with Phil and when I got out of living with Phil. And then I went into a very freeze mode where I was really depressed and really, I think I sought out people that reiterated my fear that Phil gave me. And so after several friendships and relationships that reiterated that connection was bad and that people were going to hurt me, I did just completely retreat. And I did a lot of really great reading at that time. But I mean, all I did was the only time I left my house was to go to work. And then on the way home from work, I would go to the grocery store and then I would sleep for like 12 hours. And then I would like shower and go back to work and do it all again. And I didn't have friends. I didn't go anywhere in public. I only went to the grocery store at night. So I didn't have to like be around people. And the only time I was around people was when I was working. And those people, you know, I was at a strip club. So it wasn't like healthy people. That's a generalization. Yeah, no offense to that. But it's true. It wasn't like I was surrounding myself with people or even like positive people. I was surrounding myself with people that were also in pain and looking for things.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't have human connection for a long time because it was, in my mind, it was dangerous, bad, and scary. And it still is, in my mind.
Yeah. It's not debilitating, though, is it? Not right now.
Well, I mean, I have tried to divorce you and make you divorce me, and
that's true.
I'm not debilitated, but I don't have like a huge circle of friends, and I'm not a social person. And
neither do I.
I love how you just keep comparing yourself. And it's like completely different.
It is completely different, but I'm trying to show you that I have some of the same thing, and I'm considered normal. You know, like I don't hang around a lot of people all the time.
Yeah, but you used to. You used to be a really social person. You're an ENFJ, the extroverted version of me, or I'm the introverted version of you, however you want to put it. And like after we got married and after you joined the Navy, you just stopped making friends and you stopped going out and you stopped being social. So that isn't a healthy response. That was you changing who you are because of the lifestyle that you're in now. Before you knew me, before you were in the Navy, before you had kids, you were social. You were going out all the time. You were having interactions and connections with people.
Very good point. Sherlock.
Miss Complexities. I already have enough names. I don't need any more.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Freeze types sometimes have or appear to have attention deficit disorder. My favorite. Everybody has ADD. They often master the art of changing the internal channel whenever inner experience becomes uncomfortable. Yeah, you're pretty good at that.
Yeah, it's just like switching your...
Changing the subject.
Yeah, but it is also like changing your perspective and your feeling and like disassociating from whatever it is that's bothering you.
Right. That's what he's getting at.
Right.
When they are especially traumatized or triggered, they may exhibit a schizoid-like detachment from ordinary reality. And in worst-case scenarios, they can decompensate into a schizophrenic experience like the main character in the book, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. Never read that book. So
I've never read that either, but I have had completely disassociating from reality experiences.
Like what? You don't have to share if you don't want to. I was just curious because I don't know if I've heard the story.
In my past, I used to question what was real and what wasn't a lot of times. Like I would live in these triggers, especially when I was reclusing. Like I would be triggered for months and months and months at a time, and I would question what was real. Like I would say something to someone or I'd have an interaction, and I would wonder, like, am I saying this out loud? Am I saying this in my head? Can people hear what I'm thinking? Am I actually talking right now? So I had a lot of questioning myself.
You think it was because your sleep cycle was so fucked? Or partly?
Maybe. I don't know. But then also, like, I got into some really severe paranoia, which I think anyone who experienced what I went through, where somebody set me up for a crime that they committed and I ended up going to jail for like 2 days, and having to go on probation and everything. And come to find out, it was like all, like I had been in this relationship with someone for like 9 months, and it was all a setup. I was just his scapegoat. But after that, I started questioning, again, I didn't leave my house for a couple of months. I started questioning, who was in on it? Were my friends in on it? Was my dad in on it? Was it
paranoia for sure? Just
like really severe paranoia where I didn't know what was real. I didn't know. I remember one of my friends finally forced me to go outside after I think it was 2 months where I didn't leave Phil's house, which is enough to make anyone crazy. But I remember he took me to a park, and it was just like a really weird experience to be out in the world again and totally questioning, am I even alive right now? Or just so disassociated and disconnected from all of these people who are playing at a playground and I saw people walking their dog on a trail, and it just all seemed so surreal, and I was just watching life happen, but I wasn't connected to any of it, and I didn't trust that any of it was actually happening. It's just really.
Was it just because you were so shocked of what happened?
I think it's because I'm so easily pulled into paranoia because I've been lied to and hurt and misguided so many times by other humans that I have a lot of trust issues, which don't they don't express themselves in a normal way, where you would probably just question people's intentions and maybe bring it up in a conversation or do a little digging, But for me,
I'd hold myself back a little bit. Yeah.
I would fucking completely lose touch with reality and think everyone in the world was against me. And then I would wonder if this was all a dream, and maybe I hadn't woken up since I was 12 and my whole life was, some sort of fucking dream, just total.
You're in the Matrix.
Exactly.
You're just a battery.
Totally. Maybe shit. All this fucked up stuff that's happened to me over the past 15 years is just a dream.
That would be great if it was.
Yeah.
I guess.
But I think whenever you're in that and you genuinely don't know, it can be really scary.
Wow. Legit, you thought there's no way this is real.
Oh yeah, I've been there many a times, especially when I was younger, where I would be maybe my mom never did die. Maybe I did never move in with Phil, and maybe this is all just some sort of fucking dream that I'm gonna wake up from eventually.
Whoa.
Yeah, that kind of paranoia.
Yeah. Yeah, why not, right? If you've been through so much trauma, that sounds a hell of a lot better.
I think at some point your mind has been through so much gaslighting and lies and bullshit from other people who you trusted. Your psyche's been broken so many times by these people and their lies that you don't know what's real anymore.
Wow. All right, I'm going to keep reading this thing. Recovering from a polarized freeze response. Recovery for freeze types involves 3 key challenges. First, their positive relational experiences are few, if any. I would say that's true, given your history.
I'm sorry, what? I was totally blanking out.
You were.
What did you just say?
You look like you were listening.
I was having a flashback. I was somewhere else.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. What did you say?
All right. First, their positive relational experiences are few, if any.
Right, so they don't have a lot of good relationships.
Right.
I can attest to that.
They are therefore extremely reluctant to enter into the type of intimate relationship that can be transformative.
Yeah, those suck.
Hello, you're here.
I know.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Somehow you found me, and you knew it was a good thing.
It was definitely forced upon me. The universe was like, this has to happen. You're clearly losing touch with reality. You need to come back.
We're going to pair you up with this extremely resilient motherfucker.
This guy is a glutton for punishment.
I am a glutton for punishment for some reason. That's why. They gave me a 5-year head start. Never mind. They are even less likely to seek the aid of therapy. You didn't seek the aid of therapy.
I was reluctant for a while. And then I hit my breaking point.
You just didn't have the money or whatever, the means, I thought. when I knew
I
you.
was in therapy for so long, like as a kid and with Phil in my teenage years, that like I really thought therapy wasn't going to do anything for me because I had been, like I was just like, well, that didn't fucking work.
Yeah.
So
it's like when I went and saw the doc on base for whatever, it was like 6 months. I was like, this isn't doing anything. I could see that. Of course, you're not buying it. Probably because they didn't know what the fuck was wrong with you.
Right.
They didn't really get a chance because your dad was always there fucking shit up. Ooh, I'm getting all heated about your dad right now.
My dad gets you heated?
Sometimes. Not in that way. That's fucked up. Jesus, lady. Oh my God. All right. Moreover, those who manage to overcome this reluctance often spook easily and quickly terminate. So you get into therapy and they poke you a little too hard and you're like, nope, I'm out. See you. And you never come back.
Yeah, well, see, the way to prevent that is to lock yourself in a mental hospital and then they force you.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time you went, you tried to get out.
I'm fine.
You
Just
called
come get me. I'm good.
It wasn't even a week.
This.
You were like, no, I'm good. These
like
fuckers,
3
they
or
have
4
no idea.
days.
Yeah. They were like, you were like, hey, they have no idea what they're talking about. I'm fine. They don't know what these fucking doctors, they're stupid. And I was like, no, you're staying. I'm not coming to get your ass.
Yeah, you just go somewhere where they lock the doors at night.
Yep.
And eventually you will have to confront these things. I remember this girl the first time that I was in there. She was a really good person. She's a lot younger than me. Very, I don't think she was ready to confront a lot of shit, but she would literally hide from her therapist. And I'm telling you, I was in this ward of the mental hospital. It wasn't a big place. There was not, and they lock your bedrooms during the day. It's not like you can go hide in your bedroom. Like you had to stay to the common spaces. And she would spend like her hour of therapy hiding in different locations from her doctor. And she was pretty good at it. I mean, he would spend like 15, 30 minutes trying to find her every time. And then, she would only have to do like 15 or 30 minutes of the session.
So you found her?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a small space. It wasn't like she could hide forever.
Uh-huh.
Doors are locked. You can't get away.
Plenty of places to hide. There was a piano.
Yeah.
There was a whiteboard.
Giant couches you could hide behind. Anyway, yeah. So she was that like, I don't want to do this.
Sure. I wouldn't want to. But isn't that kind of an admission?
Yeah, I think that's a really good sign. Like, if you feel like you need to go to therapy, but then it just keeps becoming too much for you and you keep running from it, that's when the universe is like, this is the shit you need to confront. Because as soon as you sit down and start confronting it, it's not going to be as scary anymore.
Right. Especially if you're supposed to be in a place where you can feel safe in confronting it.
Yeah, I mean, therapy's not fun. Nobody ever goes into therapy and is like, oh, I had a really great time and
I don't know,
I really want to go
times.
back. That's because you weren't facing this kind of shit.
No.
But yeah, whenever you go into therapy, like maybe you need to reevaluate your expectations. Like if you're expecting it to be comfortable and a great experience, then you're wrong. Like,
I think people...
it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be hard. But the more you do it, the more you're like...
I think people are expecting to go in and hear the magical words and feel better when they get out of the session. I think that's what the expectation usually is, right?
I think I went through like 2 years of once a week one-on-one therapy after the mental hospital that I didn't feel good afterwards. And then it started getting to the point where afterwards I was like, oh, I do kind of feel better now. Like this is getting better.
Well,
but I still had to force myself to go.
And it's not about... And I think a lot of people would have that exact reaction, eventually. Because it's not about what they say to you. Right? It's about where they lead you.
Yeah. Therapy is not about anything that has to do with the therapist. So many people are like, oh, I didn't connect with them, or they weren't very good, or, it's not about them.
There's some truth to that, for sure.
There is.
I mean,
you have to
find
trust the person. But ultimately, I mean, I guess I've been to enough therapists that I can get out whatever I need to get out from them.
Oh, Jesus.
But therapy is for you. Therapy is for you to confront yourself and for you to be in a physical and mental space that you can heal. So that can be done anywhere with anyone if you allow it.
Right. Okay, so second, so they bail on therapy. That's the first one. Recovery-free types They have 3
So
challenges.
stop bailing from the therapy.
Right.
Just fucking
Don't
go.
just fucking do it. Man up.
Or woman
Or
up.
woman up. Or
They.
they up.
Yeah.
That would be the
We
other.
should just up. Everybody should up.
What?
Stop putting labels on people and just
Oh my
up.
God. Labels are everywhere. You can't avoid it. Second, freeze types. Look, that's a label. Freeze type. Second, freeze types have 2 commonalities with fight types. They are less motivated to try to understand the effects of their childhood traumatization. That makes sense.
I'm actually like visualizing somebody I know. This is like reading like their if they had like a psych profile. I imagine. Well, I'm sure they do have many psych profiles, but yeah.
Many are unaware that they have a troublesome inner critic or that they are in emotional pain. Furthermore, they tend to project the perfectionistic demands of the critic onto others rather than onto themselves. Oh yeah. That's what is that what he's saying is shared with the fight types?
I guess so.
I mean, it makes sense. You're going to project that shit onto other people. That's a fight type, right?
I think it's human nature to project, but
Well,
yeah.
This survival mechanism helped them as children to use the imperfections of others as justification for isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. In the past, isolation was a smart, safety-seeking behavior. Third, even more than workaholic fight types, workaholic flight types, easy to miss that L. Freeze types are in denial about the life-narrowing consequences of their singular adaptation.
Right. They see all of the habits that they have now.
Uh-huh.
It's like they have trouble seeing how it's affecting their life. Like they know that maybe these behaviors are killing them or keeping them from being happy and successful. But at the same time, they like justify it somehow or they don't see it. It's
or they justify not fixing it or
maybe it just seems too much. I don't know if it's that kind of excuse or if it's like an actual like denial, like the fight types, like a narcissist who denies that they've ever done anything wrong. It's kind of like they deny that the trauma and abuse that they're perpetuating on themselves is actually harmful to them.
Okay. Let me read that again. So third, even more than workaholic flight types, freeze types are in denial about the life-narrowing consequences of their singular adaptations. Some freeze types that I have worked with seem to have significant periods of contentment with their isolation. Like they're like, I'm fine, right?
Well, it's because you feel safe in that.
I think they may be able to self-medicate by releasing the internal opioids that the animal brain is programmed to release when danger is so great that death seems imminent. Internal opioid release is more accessible to freeze types because the freeze response has its own continuum that culminates with the collapse response. See, that's what I was talking about earlier. You can physically change the chemistry in your brain to serve you.
Right. I don't think that I have that ability.
When we were talking about the bipolar thing being a chemical thing in your brain, you can... it's going to be difficult, but I would think there might be a way to try to manipulate that on your own. I mean, if you're able to do this in a freeze response...
Well, it's amazing.
I mean, you're not necessarily consciously doing it, but it's doing it.
It's a unconscious evolution of your mind.
Right.
Because of the trauma of your past, you've evolved to the point where you can do this.
Right.
And I think when there's a fine line, because when we realize like how much our people with CPTSD, our brains have evolved from patty faces, then you have to watch out because it's like, oh, these are superpowers.
Right.
But they're also harming you.
Oh,
so
sure.
you have to find, you got to heal. I mean, obviously, I guess end goal would be to heal all of them. I don't know. There's this quote that I really like, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something like, you can't heal the demons that you like to dance with. And that's something that like I've really struggled with lately because there are things about my mental evolution that I'm like, yeah, this is a fucking superpower. Like, I love being
Right.
this amount
Right.
of hypervigilant.
Right.
I love this or that or whatever.
Right.
And I could see that opioid release, when you're releasing the oxytocin and you're releasing those really nice hormones that feel good, that could definitely be something that you see as your superpower, even if you're not even conscious of it happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever experienced that. My isolation doesn't necessarily make me feel better. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been in that mental state. So I don't know if I've ever actually done that. But
Right.
I could see how that would be a less awful way to live than your normal state. And it could seem like healing.
Huh. Sure. We only have a little bit left. So the collapse response is an extreme abandonment of consciousness.
Right. It's when you're disassociating fully.
Yeah. It appears to be an out-of-body experience that is the ultimate dissociation. It can sometimes be seen in prey animals that are about to be killed. I have seen nature films of small animals in the jaws of predator that show it letting go so thoroughly that its death appears to be painless. However, the opioid production that some freeze types have access to only takes its survival so far before its analgesic properties no longer function. Numbed out contentment then morphs into serious depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. This in turn can lead to addictive self-medicating with substances like alcohol, marijuana, and narcotics. Alternatively, the freeze type can gravitate toward ever-escalating regimens of antidepressants and anxiolytics.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I also suspect that some schizophrenics are extremely traumatized freeze types who dissociate through so thoroughly that they cannot find their way back to reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sounded like you almost got there on your own. I was going to say something. I don't remember what it was. I was reading the thing. It's like when I've heard some people, when they're being like raped, they just go dead in the water. They just stop. They don't shout. They don't scream. They don't move. They don't try to prevent it. That would be like a freeze response. That would be what was the word he used?
The ultimate disassociation?
Collapse
I don't know.
response kind of thing, where it's just like
I don't know.
he makes the point with an animal who's about to be killed.
Yeah.
Just goes dead in the thing's mouth, and then whatever happens.
This is a really sticky topic, and I'm
It
probably
is.
going to catch some flack for this, but I don't think that somebody being raped and going into this ultimate disassociation, I don't think just getting raped is, I'm not saying just getting raped. Like, I'm not, putting a spectrum on trauma, but
Right.
there is a spectrum on trauma.
Sure.
There, people who experience a sexual assault later in life, they get PTSD.
Right.
Children who are born into a sexually abusive family or household or are repeatedly sexually assaulted,
Over time, yeah.
those people get complex PTSD.
Right.
And there is a difference.
Sure.
And I think, yes, it is normal for people to shut down, but there is a big difference between the ultimate disassociation that he's talking about,
Right.
and somebody who gets raped,
Right.
and
Well, yeah. That was
disassociates.
the example.
I just don't think that you're comparing a being's death in the animal's mouth to someone being raped, and I just don't think that's a proper comparison.
Oh,
Although I'm sure people will get pissed about that, but there is a difference in your mind. There is a difference, especially if you're a teenager or you're an adult and your
Right.
consciousness has already formed and you have an identity, and you get assaulted after. Whereas if you're a child and
Right.
these abuses are happening,
well, and you would live in that state.
right?
So that would be a huge difference, is that you would go into this, I keep losing it.
I think what I'm trying to say is I
The
don't think that
shutdown,
if you're
collapse response.
if you're a
you
normal
live in that
person,
state.
if you're a patty face for 15 or 30 years,
Yeah.
and then you experience a trauma, I don't think that you will get that ultimate disassociation. It's just...
Well, you won't live in it, probably.
I have a hard time seeing, like, there's just a difference.
Sure.
Like, if you're willing to set your ego and your own victimhood aside and say, it is more, I don't want to use the word, it is different for somebody who's a child who was sexually assaulted multiple times.
Right.
Who's never formed an identity, who develops complex PTSD, as opposed to somebody who has had an identity, who hasn't been traumatized until later in life. There is a difference in the degree of disassociation that those people are going to experience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%. I wonder why he makes that he makes that comparison himself, really. I mean, he's talking about the animal being killed. That's just one instance, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, but there's a difference between you know that you're dying and being raped. I don't know. See, this is where I'm a horrible person again. I don't know.
Well,
I've never been in the mouth of a predator almost dying, and you just completely disassociate. I think if I was in the mouth of a predator, I would reach for my knife and slit his throat. But that's just me.
Well, everybody has different responses. You know,
everybody does have different responses.
When I went through the training, I was a sexual assault victim advocate, and we went through the training, and yeah, everybody has different responses. Some people, you would fucking stab a guy in the neck. So other people just go limp and they just dissociate for the time being until it's over.
But you're talking about freeze response, you're talking about somebody who's been through so much trauma,
right?
Who's constantly living in this state where they're on the verge of disassociation,
right?
And that starts in childhood.
Right. Nobody's disputing that.
Okay.
I think he's just making a weird... He's making a weird comparison to the animal being killed because that's a moment in time. That's not a lifetime. And that's the point you're making, correct?
I think it is. And I think what he's getting to is he's saying that, animals are on this different primal level where they can elicit that endorphin rush at the end of their life so that their death almost seems blissful.
Uh-huh.
In the same way that these people who have lived in disassociation or the ultimate constant disassociation their whole life can elicit that endorphin response.
Now, I wonder if an animal who's constantly in the jaws of predators and ending up surviving would just eventually dissociate completely.
Does that happen? Do bunny rabbits get out of wolves' mouths?
I was kind of making a dark funny.
I didn't get it.
I didn't either.
Well, that's the difference between human and animals. We keep going. We pull out the knife and we stab a motherfucker.
Yeah.
If we should just arm the bunny rabbits. That's the answer.
No. Circle of life. Sometimes you get eaten.
Sometimes you get traumatized.
Sometimes you get... That's not what I mean. Jesus.
That's what I mean.
All right, so here we go. Last little couple of chunks here. Several of my freeze-type respondents highly recommend a self-help book by Suzette Boone entitled Coping with Trauma-Related Dissociation. This book is filled with very helpful worksheets that are powerful tools for recovering. More than any other type, the freeze type usually requires a therapeutic relationship because their isolation prevents them from discovering relational healing through friendship. That said, I know of some instances where good enough relational healing has come through pets and the safer, distant type of human healing that can be found in books and online internet groups.
And plants.
Interesting. Plants.
We live in a forest.
So here we go. 3 key challenges. Positive relational experiences are few, if any. Positive relational experiences are few, if any. Second, they share a lot with fight types. Less motivated to try to understand the effects of their traumatization.
Less mean, too.
Yeah. Third, freeze types are in denial about the life-narrowing consequences of their singular adaptation.
And there you go. If you constantly disassociate from reality, this is how you fix it. There's a light at the end of that tunnel.
There's a hard one.
I just had to get the light at the end of the tunnel out.
Every episode.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think freezes are really complex.
That's really, what?
I think It's interesting, the parallels between narcissists and freeze types, because there's so much disassociation, but then it's, narcissists push things out on people, whereas freeze types, they push their pain onto themselves. And so you can see that parallel of
Sure.
They're both kind of in the same denial phase and denial of reality or of themselves, but one of them is turning it out on others and the other one is inflicting it on themselves because of however their conditioning was. Whatever it was that traumatized them, whatever they were conditioned, whoever they were conditioned by taught them to either be a narcissist or a freeze type.
What do you think about the freeze? How much of this do you think you have? You said you're mostly flight right now, but you said it's been stages in your life.
Right. I think there were points in my life, 10, 12 years ago where I was definitely in that disassociation. And I still
You
have...
mean when you got framed and all that?
Yeah, when I had a lot of trust issues. I started I lost trust within myself, and not just of other people, but with myself. And that's a really scary place to be.
Wasn't that the flight though? No,
I'm
it's
talking
not.
about the
freeze
where
types.
You
You question reality.
Schizophrenic type
Yeah,
breakdowns.
right.
I think
freeze
it's
is
so
complicated.
interesting that there's so many disorders or illnesses out there that could all be traced back to childhood trauma. And I really encourage people to, I'm not trying to change anybody's diagnosis or fuck up anybody who has something good going on. But if you have a diagnosis or several diagnoses or you're going through some sort of treatment and it just doesn't seem like it's fitting, it doesn't seem like it's working, find the core, find the root of the issue. Because if you have whatever the fuck it is that you have, our society wants to deal with symptoms. It doesn't want to take on the root cause of whatever the issue is. And until you take on the root cause, you're not going to heal. So, in my humble opinion, everything is caused from trauma. Everything is caused from pain, especially in childhood. So, go back, find it, heal it. Don't label yourself necessarily, but these 4 F's are really healing modalities. They're ways of understanding your specific healing, your specific personality and mindset and conditioning, and taking on those healing modalities to recondition your brain. And until you go to the core of the breakage, whatever broke in your mind, whatever was broken in your mind by the world or people around you, until you go back to that, it's not going to fix itself. You can medicate the symptoms, you can meditate the symptoms away.
Whoa.
But until you start confronting the deeper issues, what really caused them, you're not going to be whole.
Yeah. And then this can be, honestly, I'm reading this too, and it's good info for anybody really to take a look at who you are, even if you don't have as much trauma.
Well, I think everybody has some sort of trauma in their life. There's nobody that goes through life and makes it to adulthood without being traumatized by something. At least on to some sort of degree.
In a big way, it shapes who we are.
Exactly.
There's reasons why I act the way I do.
Right. You've had traumatic experience. Everybody has had some sort of traumatic experience. They just are different and on different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So go back to the beginning, figure out what made you, and using the 4 F's is a really great way to figure out what your next healing step is.
All right. Win of the week. Do you have a win of the week?
You go first.
Ooh. I think I made all the things happen that needed to happen for my transition out of the military. Made it happen. Sucked it up. Faced it. Went to the building. Saw the people. As much as I didn't want to, I did it.
We're going to go with the really basic one of the week. Still here. Still moving on.
Still here.
Uh,
Next episode.
We're going to do fawn. And we're going to start touching on, I want to do some episodes about different kinds of healing therapies, modalities, things I've tried, things that have been successful, things that haven't been successful. I'd like to hear what other people have tried, what has been helpful for them, what hasn't been helpful. If you have questions about, should I try this or should I try that? Let me know. I've tried just about everything. The only therapy I haven't tried is electric shock treatments. So
yeah,
and there's a couple of new things that have been coming out I haven't done that I actually want to get into. And I want to do kind of like a review about trying those. But so yeah, I'm going to talk about therapies that I've tried, and we're also going to answer the question, what is love?
Baby, don't hurt me.
And is it possible after trauma? So yeah.
Yeah, the email that we had from the listener.
Right.
We're finally going to get to it because we're going to have time. So yeah, next episode.
Find us on social media.
Social media, at Complexities Podcast on Instagram. Complexities.podcast at gmail.com is the email. Hit us up. Please email us. Subscribe. That's a huge one. Get on all your platforms. iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher.
Feel free to share if you know somebody who's really fucked up in the head and you think this will help them.
Yeah, share it. Even with normal people.
We have a Facebook. It's Complexities Podcast. Type it in, you'll find it.
Yep.
Yeah. Fuck Phil.
Fuck Phil.